concept, so I'll just do my best. It's when we're in chemistry, the central unit of chemistry, we could say, is a mole. Kind of like the unit of dozen is used a lot in baking and pastries. So chemists would use moles. And what we need to go over today is we need to find out how much mass of a substance is in 1 mole. So we could jot down that the molar mass, which is also sometimes called, so I'm going to write AKA, you all know what that means, right? Also known as the formula mass, represents the number of grams of a substance in 1 mole. So it represents the number of grams of a substance in 1 mole. So let me show you how to do this real quick. I want to go through some examples on how we find molar mass. And we'll take something simple and then we'll work our way up. So find the molar mass of H2O. That's going to be like our first example problem that we'll use. And here's how we're going to find the molar mass of it. How many H's do you see in this compound? 2? Okay, so I'm going to take the number 2. And what's the mass, and I'm saying specifically the mass of H from the periodic table? So I'm going to multiply this 2 by 1.008 because that's the mass of hydrogen. And since water is not just 2 H's, it's also an O as well, I should add the mass of oxygen. Now, how many oxygens do you see in this compound? So I'm going to take 1 times 15.999. And of course, that's the number that we're getting for oxygen from the periodic table. I'm going to add those 2 up. So in your calculator, you will do this. You'll take 2 times 1.008 plus 1 times 15.999. And the grand total we get should be about 18.015. This number that we have just got is going to represent the molar mass of oxygen, or of water, I'm sorry. That's the molar mass of water, 18.015. That is an 8 there. And the units for molar mass, just like the units for temperature should be like Celsius or Fahrenheit, the units of molar mass is going to be grams per mole, which means that in every 1 mole of water, there's going to be 18.015 grams. So Jason, who was just washing his hands in the back, if he had had 18.015 grams of water and he said, I have that much water in my hand, I would say, Jason, we actually also have 1 mole. It's analogous to saying that someone says, I have 12 eggs. Well, can't you just tell them that they have a dozen? Isn't that the same? It's the same concept. If you have 18.015 grams, then you have 1 mole of a substance. Good? Or at least of water, not just any substance. Where did I get this 2 from? The number of H's, right? This 1.008, what was that? the mass of H. You can look at that on the periodic table and find it very quickly. That's the mass of the H. And of course 15.999 was the mass of the O times 1 because there's only one O. Good? Let's look at a different example real quick. I'll let you work independently on this one. Find the molar mass of Na3PO4. If you don't have a calculator, the least you can do is write out your pieces like I did a while ago. You know you're going to have a piece for Na and P and the O's. I think what we see, or what we have, is we've got how many NAs? 3, correct? That's 22.990 from the periodic table times 3. Plus 1 times 30.974 for having 1 P. And then having 4 O's would be 4 times... Good. And what do we get? So the answer to this question would be 163.94. What did we just find? We found the grams per mole. That's so if I said, please get me 1 mole of sodium phosphate, because that's what this is, how many grams would you have to go get? Exactly. You know how someone says I have 30 miles per gallon, or I get 30 miles per gallon? That is the number of miles they get in 1 gallon. You need this many grams in 1 mole. Good. Let's do one more example real quick. A little bit more complicated. I'll give you a little bit of time. So for this question, I think we would get that the nitrogen, how many nitrogens are there in this compound? 2. At least in this position there's 2. So 2 times 14.007. And we would add that to how many H's do we see? Total of 8. So plus 8 times 1.008. We do see where I'm getting the 14.007 and the 1.008 from, correct? It's coming from the periodic table. How many S's are we going to add to this? Just 1. And what's the mass of a single S? Right, because it's written right there on the periodic table as being 32.066. And then add to that how many O's? 4 times 15.999. In doing that, what did we get as our answer? You said what? I'm sorry? So along those lines, give or take? Grams per mole. So in this, or this set of examples, what did we find? This number at the end is called the what? Molar mass. So we have found the molar mass, which is also known as what from your notes? The formula mass, the number of grams in 1 mole. We found that 3 times in these, each 3 different examples, right there, and right there. Good? So that's kind of really the way it concludes, is that you now know how to find the formula or molecular or molar mass.